I've said several times that I'll likely end up on a tiling window manager. Well, I finally decided to try it, and I'm going to be working on a challenge for the next 30 days of using i3. I installed i3 yesterday, and have been using it mostly since. I do have another thing going on this week that may prevent me from using it a little bit, but we may be talking about that challenge in a couple weeks. I want to talk about some of the changes that I've had to make so far and just some of the overall thought process changes that this is going to take. Let's start where most i3 videos start, with the config file. So if I type config here and I want to go to the top, so that's PG. There we go. This is my current i3 config. Don't judge me on this one just yet. I have to go back and basically rewrite the entire thing at this point. I started with the Arco Linux default and realized that it just got unwieldy very quickly. If you look, I believe it's 885 lines long with tons of comments like this, tons of duplicate commands, so it doesn't really work for me. I'm sure that if I was better at Vim, this would be a lot easier to work through, but I am still fairly noobish when it comes to Vim, so there are still a lot of things that I just don't know how to do as easily as I should, but that will come with time. Since I believe this has been written, they actually started allowing you to split out i3 files, i3 config, into different files. So my plan eventually, probably not this week, but probably next week, is to just take this file and go section by section and basically divide out into 4, maybe 5 files, just to make it easier to find. Because just as we go down here, we have some basic variables set up right here. And then as we keep going down, we have this xrandar output here. We have this here. I actually added that. And I don't really feel like there's super clear places to add what I think I need to add. So then we get down to the workspaces. These being named numbers makes it a little awkward at times compared to what you kind of expect, just because when you're referencing them, you just reference a number and it looks a little strange. But this is where I've started really getting a little frustrated with the how everything's spread out, and so just started adding some stuff. But as we go forward on, but these are what section is briefly doing, just for those that aren't familiar with i3, is this is going in and it's assigning a variable to the first and second monitor, and it's also coming down and then defining 10 workspaces. I have actually defined 2 more, 11 and 12, though I don't really have a good key combination right now to use for those. This is trying to set up a scratch pad with a volume control. I'm gonna have to update it to use something else, but there are windows called scratch pads that can be opened anywhere, and they don't actually live in a typical workspace. They look to be really good for stuff, to me at least, they look to be good for stuff like Discord or volume control and things like that you access a lot. I've actually heard of people putting terminals in those, and that sounds pretty solid idea, like a pretty solid idea to me, but I gotta see how workflow wise this thing works out. And then this is where I'm setting specific applications to actually be floating or non-floating by default. And then finally, this is the actual key combinations to get to each workspace. And the mod variable here is the Windows or super key. So mod 1, mod 2, mod 3, all the way to mod 0. I tried to make mod 1 is Alt and then Control Shift 0 and get to workspace 11, but that just doesn't really work for the way everything's set up right now. This is just making it so that Godot comes up on workspace 9. And then finally, these are just some key combinations to actually move a container to a workspace. You'll see here it's mod shift 1, move container to workspace, and then the number. And that's where I say it feels a little awkward to just reference the number like that, as opposed to like WS1 or something, I just find it more pleasing and a bit clearer in code to be able to reference an actual variable like that. But that's just me. There's a lot here that honestly I haven't used that I just need to completely delete. There's a lot of stuff here that I'm just never going to use, or that, I need to really, really change. Here's a nice one. Mod Shift R is the restart for i3, and mod shift C is the reload a configuration file. This is really good if you, once you make an update, you can run one of these and actually, get those updates applied to the from the configuration file. But yeah, here, like mod shift Q and then mod Q, like I just want one. I can use mod shift Q if I want to use that for something entirely different. I don't see the point in going through the whole thing here, but as you go on, you'll see further down that ultimately it's talking about different things. This is not really a programming language. It's just a configuration language that they've set up. And some of these are pretty simple. Like this one is resizing for resizing window. So, mod and then alt, then control, right, up, left, down, and left. So this auto tiling here, this is something that is from the Arco Linux config, and it's one of the things that I absolutely knew I needed. There is a GitHub repository I'll bring up on screen really quick that has this. Normally in i3, you have to manually tell Windows where to go. And to me, that just seems kind of silly. That's an extra keystroke. That's an extra part of the thought process that most of the time I don't really care about. To me, that would just slow me down. And the whole point of a tiling window manager is to, really be efficient. So this, without auto tiling, it seems really inefficient. All right, so here's some more things that I just wanted to show really quick before we move on and just talk a little bit more about some of the other differences, because this really gets started on them. So you'll notice here, like for window class, and then it'll have a terminate, terminator, alacrity, all of those. I probably need to add kitty here, and it has focus. So to check the window class, you actually have to enter xprop in the terminal, and then actually go and click on the window with your cursor, which is turned into a crosshair. So you have to do that, and then you can get the actual window class. So what these are doing is these are forcing the focus to happen on these particular applications. So I'm using kitty right now. That's one of the first things I kind of went in and updated. And to do that, if I wanted to add this, I would probably say for window, and I haven't actually checked to see what the class is, but I can guess. And I would say class equals, and then focus. So let's write that. So you say xprop, and then you click on the window, which you saw I had a little, maybe a little small, but I had a little crosshair, and so it is kitty lowercase. So we'll go back and update that. So yeah, what we need to do is instead we'd have to swap this out and just do lowercase kitty. And let's write that just so that I don't forget. But what I want to put out here is just look at all these rules that they have here. And I mean, granted, like I say, a lot of these I'm not going to need, but it's something where these are really things that you have to think about a lot more when it comes to a tiling window manager. And also just things like notifications. You don't have a default notification handler. Like you'll see notifications, I believe, pop up in the top right corner sometimes, but I don't believe there's actually a default notification handler installed. So I think you probably want to set up something like maybe Dunst, I believe is one that they use. The thought process is just, it's just a very different mindset that you have to get into that I'm going to have to keep working on. But it's just really a different mindset you have to get into to make this work. For example, one thing that I've been looking at a little bit more is the way that you can actually stack. So I can stack windows. Here we go. So I had to bring up Firefox to actually have this happen. So you'll notice I have a little Firefox tab here on the right and a little one on the left here. So I can actually go and change this to be a stacked setup. So now you'll notice I have the Mozilla Firefox below and the terminal above. I'd like for it to actually say kitty. I'll have to figure out where I actually change that. I probably need to tell i3 that I need that to happen. And right now I'm still getting used to things, so I get myself into these weird situations like this where I have two stacked columns and then they're tabbed side by side. So, I have to figure out how to work through this type of thing. So for me right now, if I hold the Windows key and press F, I can make a window full screen or reduce it back to normal. I can do super shift space, and I can make the window floating, and then I need to hold down the Windows key or super key to move it around. And if I want to put it back, I can just do super shift space again, and that will do that. Lots of key commands to remember, lots of key commands to set up. And I think the trickiest thing for me is going to be all of these window rules that we were seeing that I'm just going to have to figure out what actually makes sense for me. These rules they're what's going to really take me a long time to really figure out. And things like just understanding what I need to actually do to get some of these to cooperate, like this variety stuff. I just need to entirely delete the variety stuff. I don't use variety. So variety is a background manager. You can actually have it randomly change your background every time you log in or every 5 minutes or something like that. I just need to go through like almost line by line, group by group, and just split them out into 3, 4, 5 files where it really makes sense. And then I'll really be able to start making this what I need. There's just a different mindset you have to take when you're starting to use a tiling window manager. Some, like i3, are a bit more friendly than others. There are configurations like the Arco Linux one that you can find to try to add more into it, but there are times where that can actually backfire a little bit. So like this, it's a little much for what I need right now, but without it, it would be difficult for me to really go through and fully comprehend quite the abilities that I had. So in that respect, I really like having a more full configuration file. But in the respect of having a bunch of commands that I don't need and a bunch of rules that I may not need, that's where I have to go back and prune things out that I don't need. i3 is a little bit better about that. I believe Qtile is a bit better about that. But even i3, I did not have a volume manager by default. I had to go and add pulse audio volume control so I could actually, raise and lower and better be able to select which particular audio device I wanted to use. So there are just a lot of things that tiling window managers typically don't include by default, and they're making the user pick those. And depending on what type of applications you use and all of that, you're probably going to take a while really just setting up specific window rules. But the trick is, once you get all of this done, you then have something that's set to fit you like a glove. And thus, you're able to more easily do whatever task you're trying to do. When you try to go and open, for example, one thing that I really want to do is have OBS and an audio recording program open in a specific workspace with a specific key combination and to do it tabbed so that I can easily have that set up ready to go with just a key press. So that's something that I really want to work toward and see if I can get to the point of, but it's gonna take some time to get there for many people. What are your thoughts? Are you a tiling window manager user? Are you typically using a desktop environment? Or have you tried a tiling window manager before and decided it wasn't for you? Or are you tiling window manager pro? If so, what tips do you have for me or anybody else who's looking to start using a tiling window manager? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and I will see you next time.